Hey guys, Steve here. Today I got a look at the Baltimore. Norm Scott on the screen here. This setup is primarily for my light cruisers. My long-term plan is to get Einstein up and running, primarily for the Baltimore, but also New Orleans and Pensacola. Really slow turret traverse on those ships. Improved AP in terms of penetration and stuff like that. So they're really AP-centric ships, and the build should reflect that. Fortunately, promotion orders being what they are, which is scarce resources, and the fact that I don't consider this the best Tier 7 cruiser known to man, it's not a top priority for me. This is a domination mode game, which is kind of the game mode that the Baltimore really shines in, but they only have one destroyer. Actually, both teams only have one destroyer, so the importance in terms of role is minimized, and we're going to be more focused on dealing damage here. I think I end up shooting AP the entirety of the game. Really, the optimal time to be shooting HE comes up at the end. I'll point it out. But for this ship and the heavy cruisers of the USN line, you want to be using the AP as much as possible. HE, if the ship is really steeply angled and it doesn't look like they're going to get out of that angle anytime soon. Really slow reload on these, so you got to kind of plan ahead on the shell selection. Therefore, the AP should be the preferred shell. Leon gets blasted right off the bat, which is kind of funny. Early on, we'll be getting into a position that a lot of you guys have probably seen me play this before. This is a good, strong position in my opinion. Pretty centrally located, so you have access to a lot of ships. We can cover A effectively here. The main threat is if the enemy kind of pushes towards B and C aggressively, then you can start getting shots coming from the east. And if these ships push to the west, then you got potential crossfire situations developing. We do have the island to the left, though, which you can use to minimize the incoming fire from the western portion of the map. So you do need to have a little bit of map awareness in this position, but overall it's pretty strong here. Hood's coming in, and we're going to be putting some AP on this. Even on capture the base mode games, this spot's pretty nice, though. A lot of times the red team will kind of drift the majority of the ships to the west, and the blue team will kind of overload the eastern portions of the map. Why that is, I think it's just because that's the direction the ships point when they spawn, and most people just push the throttle forward and see what happens from there. When I was talking about the AP a minute ago, improved penetration angles on these shells, that means the ship can be more steeply angled towards you, and they'll have better success penetrating, and the penetration values are pretty good to begin with. High damage AP shells, so the AP, when you get the opportunity to use it, you can see the damage values that we're getting, 5, 6, 7k, sometimes volleys that are even stronger than that. The armor on this isn't too bad, so you can see we're attempting to angle here. And here comes the Turpets. Once that hood goes down, we're going to switch over to him. People have been asking me for some videos on the German battleships since the armor changes this week. I find that shooting against ships is the best way to test their armor angles, and so the Turpets is a good example here. Even if you're taking incoming fire, that little heartbeat thing will be going off if you take big chunks of damage. I don't know what it is, 10, 15, 20% of your health, you'll get that indicator. Doesn't always mean there's a citadel, but you can see when we're shooting waterline at the Turpets, we're getting damage, some damage, but it appears to be heavily armored down there now. These will, as we move back and resume firing on this thing, we'll kind of adjust our firing angles towards the top of the hull. That'll allow the ships to be hitting kind of at a downward angle, hopefully through the deck, and we will be able to achieve some citadel shots there. Whether they're hitting the stems of the guns or actually the citadel located at the bottom of the ship, it's always a little tough to tell, but you can get a fair, decent idea of where you want to be shooting at these ships. The turtleback's basically designed to make it harder and harder to citadel the closer the ship is to you, but longer range, if you can get some plunging fire into it, that's when you're going to get those juicy citadel shots on these German battleships now that they're supposedly fixed. Now, the Baltimore has always been kind of on my kill list of ships, primarily due to the radar, the fact that it has radar, especially in games, domination mode games, and games with a lot of destroyers. That's when these radar cruisers come into play, and they're really dangerous to your team, especially the destroyers. They're going to make it harder to win. So you can focus on these ships early, get rid of them. That's going to give your destroyers a lot more space rather than, the typical 5, maybe 6 kilometer buffer zone that they have to give themselves due to the concealment values of the ships. With the presence of the radar, it gets pushed out to 8.5 up to 10 kilometers with the Indianapolis. So if you're playing against radar cruisers, go ahead and get rid of them. That's going to give your destroyers a lot more space to work with, and it's going to improve your chances of winning. Now the turrets, you can see we're aiming more. We've got the horizontal line kind of lined up at the top of the deck now, and this is when we're going to start to see the citadels first off, but also more damaging results. We're still getting a mix of penetrations, shatters, and overpens, which is fine. We're still, the Turpets was basically full health, and we've whittled them down. Not 100% single-handedly, but we did the majority damage on that ship. And given enough time, and if they're not going to angle against you, easy fight there. Edinburgh. This thing has torps, has really strong nose armor. I would push that into both of this. The Baltimore, of course, doesn't have torps. The Iowa, of course, doesn't have torps. And that ship turning away and going broadside obviously isn't working for him. Sitting nose in, assuming he doesn't have anyone that has crossfire angles at him, would have been much more successful. Could have potentially torped the Iowa and whittled him down first and then moved his attention to the Baltimore. Potentially could have had a much better chance of killing both of these ships. So that Edinburgh, very strong, when well angled. But if you're going to point broadside like that, you can see how fragile that ship is in that situation. I do want to point out at this point, if you need more incentive to capture objectives, this is the major problem if you don't capture any objectives. You can see they only have 5 points, and that's not going up. They have no passive income coming in. So they got a little bit of a buffer now killing that battleship, but they get 40 points for killing the battleship, and I think we lose 60. I think it's a 100-point swing. So they still don't have a lot of room to play with here, and once that point total drops to 0 or below 0, of course the game ends. So if you're going to sit back behind the caps the entire game and let the enemy take one or more than one, then that's just another way that you're making the game harder for yourself. You're not going to win on score by using that method or strategy, if you want to call it that. But you can lose on score by not accumulating enough of a buffer between that 0 mark to keep yourself alive. Now here's where we should be using HE. Richelieu angled in like this, you can see what the AP effectiveness is going to be. At this point in the game, though, I was thinking, well, we've only shot AP, we might as well keep shooting it just to demonstrate how the AP works in various different situations. Of course, in that shot right there, we had a broadside Jean Bart, much preferable target to the Richelieu. I don't have a major problem closing in on this guy here. The Baltimore can angle fairly successfully. We're going to take some damage, but it's not going to be catastrophic moving in towards this guy. So if I can get closer to him and then flank him, I can get some potential shots into that side and put him down pretty quickly. If we're going to continue to fire the AP as we are here, got to aim up. We got to clear over those guns, try and hit that superstructure. Can't tell exactly if he's backing up or going towards us either way, but definitely would have wanted to switch HE here if we were playing optimally. There's the broadside we were looking for, but the ship goes down either way. So that's it for this one, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. A lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear from you. And we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.